Hey guys, Yuliya here. So today I'm going to continue to work on my perennial border right here, and I'm going to be planting some really pretty things like sweet peas, tulips that I forced myself, pansies and alyssum. But before I move on and jump into working, I wanted to address some of the questions that you guys asked in the previous video. And I'm so sorry, you guys, that I didn't talk about that in the previous video, because I kind of just started working without addressing some of the issues that are pretty important. So what I wanted to talk about is the mulch. That was one of the most common questions that you guys asked, is what kind of mulch I use. And the mulch I use is hardwood mulch, and the reason why I use it is that it actually breaks down quite easily over the season, and that is pretty important for a self-seeding garden like mine. And speaking of a self-seeding garden, that brings me to the second most common question that you guys asked, is that am I smothering all of the seedlings of my plants that I let seed in my perennial border? And the answer is yes. But I actually have a solution to that I'm just going to show you in a second. If you guys are familiar with my perennial border, I actually have two sides. The main side right here, and then I have the health strip side right here. So what I do is I actually mulch the main side, because if I don't, the weeds will get the best of me. But to get the seedlings of all of my self-seeding plants, I do not mulch the health strip. So all of the cleomes and feverfews and grasses and alyssum I get from here. And I actually let the seedlings mature a little bit, and then I take them out and I put them wherever I want in the garden. And this way I have a free supply of plants, and it's kind of a very natural looking garden as well. Now, on this side, I do mulch early in the spring, and by the end of the season, like August, the hardwood mulch actually starts to break down, and a lot of self-seeding plants on this side start to germinate here, like the echinacea or feverfews. So they mature in little plants, and then I have plants from this side for the following year. And I know this sounds really complicated, and self-seeding gardens are quite a delicate balance between having a natural garden with lots of free plants or having a really weedy garden. So it requires a lot of tweaking here and there, and it definitely kind of like a year after year process and lots of experience. But I found this balance where I can have a luscious garden with lots of plants and not too many weeds. Now, you can mulch your self-seeding garden selectively. You can maybe leave a little spots where you want certain plants to germinate and then mulch everything around there, or you can leave one large area that you're not going to mulch, where you're going to get your seedlings from, into your other parts of the garden. This probably requires a separate video, but I just wanted to address this before I move on to planting. Now, as for planting, I am so excited because the first thing I'm going to be planting are these sweet peas, and this is April in Paris. It's like a gorgeous white with a little bit of a purple color. And I've had these sweet peas in the greenhouse for about 2 weeks, and then outside for about 1 week to harden them off. So they are ready to go in the ground. And I did lose one. I have no idea why. Can't even do an autopsy. It's not even there. But so what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the mulch around the obelisks and put the sweet peas in. Now, the one thing about sweet peas, I don't know a lot about them. I've grown them for a couple of years, but the one thing I know that they like well-prepared soil, so about a foot depth, like a really good fluffy soil. So that's what I'm going to work on, and then just plant them. All right, you guys, so the sweet peas are planted and now the tulips are next. And let me talk about these tulips a little bit. So I forced these tulips in my garden over the last winter. So what I did last fall, I just planted a bunch of bulbs in these pots, and I placed these pots straight in the ground where they overwintered. And then in the spring, now they're almost ready to bloom, and some are actually already blooming. So what I'm going to do next, I'm actually going to plant these in this perennial border, but I'm going to take my experiment even further and plant them straight in these pots. So you can take these tulips out and plant them in the border like plants. But the reason why I'm going to plant them in these pots is because I am going to plant a bunch of dahlias here later this season. And what happens a lot of times when I dig around in my perennial border, I dig out a lot of bulbs and I lose a lot of tulips this way. Even though I mark them with golf tees, you know, a lot of them stay, but a lot of them just disappear. So I don't want to lose any of these tulips, and what I'm going to do after they're done blooming, I'm actually going to pull these pots out again, store them behind the garage until the foliage is dry, and reuse them again and again. And actually, I'm just curious to see how this experiment works over a couple of years. But another thing I wanted to talk about is how convenient it is to have your tulips forced outside like this, because when you force them outside like this, you can plant them anywhere in your garden, you can use them in your containers, and also if you have any sort of rodent problems like moles or like other critters underground that like to eat bulbs, this is a great way to save your bulbs. And as for the deer, of course you're going to spray overhead, but it definitely works against the rodents. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and plant all of these tulips, but before, let me just show you the layout. Right, so the light is kind of strange right now because it's backlit. Oh, this is better. All right, so here's my plan. I have a bunch of tulips, the forced ones. The ones that, these are from 2 years ago. These are pink impression. They're still here. And also I had some leftover alyssum and pansies from the project from a couple of weeks ago. They're actually like a month old, so they're not looking that hot, but I think they will feel much better when I put them in the ground. The sweet peas are in. But what I was going to talk about is the layout of the plants. As you can see, this is super random, but I am a big fan of random plantings. I do the classic, you know, 3s and 5s and 3s as well, but I love that natural flow of like 1 and 2 and 1 and 3 and 5, and it just flows so much more natural. And the whole randomness that I was talking about in the previous video, that nature intends, kind of present in this border here. And I just love, like, the feverfews, you know, kind of seated themselves, so that is very pretty. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and start planting. So the tulips are planted, and now have to plant pansies and alyssum. And they are those little plugs about 2 to 3 inches. And when I plant a lot of plants that size, I get quite tired. So a couple of weeks ago, I finally gave in and I bought this tool called Pro Plugger, and I love it so far. So basically what it does, it creates a hole about 2 to 3 inches, and you can make up to 5 holes like in a row, and the plugs stay here, so there are 5 plugs, and then when you have 5 plugs, you just turn it over and they fall out. It is so efficient to plant your little plants that way. The only problem I have with this is that the last plug for some reason gets stuck in here, so I just have to help it out. I don't know if it's the engineering issue or the soil that I have is quite sticky here. Anyway, let me show you how it works. Right, you guys, it's all planted and it's looking really beautiful. I know it looks like a lot of work, and it is, and it's totally worth it to me. So before I give you a little tour, I just wanted to say that as for longevity of this planting here, so I will remove the tulips once the foliage starts to yellow, and I will plant dahlias in their place. Alyssum will stay for probably majority of the summer, and pansies, you know, they probably will last until the first week of June when we get like really hot and humid weather. What else do I have here? I think that's it, and then the feverfews will fill in and the sweet peas will start to bloom. It's going to be gorgeous with the dahlias, and then I have tons of stuff from the winter sowing that I will be planting here. Anyway, let me show you what it looks like. First of all, the sweet peas. I planted about 2 or 3 per obelisk, and this obelisk actually had a clematis that already started growing up it, and I love how they just hug the poles like that. But the sweet peas, I gave them a little help with these supports from these orchid clips that I have a lot of, but I guess you can also use hair clips. It's so easy. You just you don't have to tie anything, you just clip it on, and these sweet peas will grow about up to here, which will be so beautiful. The second groupings of plants are of course tulips, and some of them are in pots, and you could never tell. Look at that. You can never tell. Actually, that one right there I had to plant out of the pot because there was a giant root in there, so I couldn't dig that out. Oh, look, the sun is coming out. Oh, that's so nice. What else I have here? Oh, of course, the Pansies and Alyssum. Now, how easy was that to plant these little guys with the Pro Plugger? Oh my gosh, it was so easy. I am definitely a believer. So these will grow to about 8 inches wide, so they will merge into these tufts here. And I love the color combo. It is purples and pinks and violet and some white, which I love. And let me show you right here. This is where all the plugs are that I used. Look at that. Isn't that so cool? So this is the gardening part of this beautiful arrangement. But anyway, this is going to fill in, and I will enjoy it for about a month and a half, except for the tulips. Those will last probably a couple of weeks. But with the weather we've been having, I think it could be longer because it's kind of cool. Yeah, this is all done. All right, you guys, this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I would love to stay in touch with you. And as per usual, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye. In the perennial border about how to mulch. This doesn't make any sense. I know, but where's my hat? Like, where is it?
You're going to turn it around, aren't you?
Nope, this is it. Okay.
Because most of the time your
Yes.
hands are below the
Yeah.
camera.
But how was the message? The message wasn't good either. Just make sure my head is not cut off.
You see the glare?
No, it's just dirty. And I have the health strip right here. And both of these sides, no. So if you, no.